Ooh, last. Do I make you laugh or do I go serious? Well, who am I? I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm an employer, I'm a sister. And according to the technical definition, I'm a hub. That means I'm a connector. It means officially I'm a networker. And a hub is, electronic. So I could talk to you about networking by being technical. In fact, if you haven't seen these already, they're in the Conran shop and they're on Amazon. These are very good with your mobile phones. The phone is, of course, the network we all know and use. And in fact, the more of us use the phone network, the stronger networks are. If I was on the phone now, it would put a barrier between us. So I'm going to put the phone down. If I plugged in a computer using a cable, it would put another kind of distance between us. But of course, a network is a technical term. It really belongs to the language of cables. So I'm going to put that down. And if I was on Twitter, which I am frequently, or LinkedIn, or 6 Degrees, or Pinterest, or Foursquare, or Facebook, you would recognize that I was doing a form of networking, but it wouldn't quite work for you, I suspect, if I started to do that now. So I'm not going to go on Twitter, although I hope you admire my Diane von Furstenberg iPad cover. And the reason why I'm not going to do any of that is because we are in a different kind of network age. 150 years after the first networks began with cables. Thomas Edison laid the first transatlantic cable after 5 years' effort in 1858 between Newfoundland and Ireland. And without him, without his many thousands of patented ideas, Wall Street would not have lit up when it did. We wouldn't have had the electricity-enabled communication systems in cities that we have. So we know that networks matter. And at the moment, we're in love with a different kind of network, which is the electric social network. But I'd like to illustrate to you why that doesn't matter as much as the human network. And I need a couple of volunteers, and I'm going to choose you randomly. Would you join me here for 1 second? And would you join me here for 1 second? So I'm Julia. What's your name?
David.
Hello. What's your name? Stephanie. I would like you to introduce yourself to David, not by saying what you do, but how you are, in some shape or form. Tell David something about yourself, and David, please tell Stephanie something about yourself. I'm just going to step out of the equation while this very important network happens.
I'm a visitor to London.
She's a visitor to London. Go.
I'm an enchanted member of the audience.
An enchanted member of the audience. That was lovely. Thank you. Please sit down. So, these two people, match made by me, have made a connection. Every bit as valid as if I'd plugged them in, they'd plugged each other in. And what that means is that perhaps at the bar afterwards, they'll smile at each other and they'll go, that was freaky. Or they'll connect a little bit more closely, a little bit more deeply. And of course, they're in an elite setting. They've paid to come in, they're savvy, they know about 5x15, so they become better connected as a result. And what I'm interested in is how something as powerful as networks and networking can spread wider and enable everybody to be connected. Because if you're not connected in this age, you are very, very alone. And in this age where we all carry our careers on our backs, we are shadow boxing with people in different continents all the time for our jobs, we use our networks and our connections and our knowledge to get on, to give us that bridge. And we are all very obsessed at the moment with the lack of fairness in society. We all get that it's wrong, but we don't know what to do about it. And we all think that the answer is money. If we could have more money to give out there, people would be okay. But I think there's a different kind of poverty out there, which is people don't have access to networks. And they don't have access to networks because they think that networks are not for them, or they don't value the networks they're doing. In the elites, you know about the old boy network. You might also have your book club, or you might have some form of club. But if you do not live in a metropolitan area, if you're not educated to a degree that networks happen naturally, you are disadvantaged. And part of the problem is that in this class-based society, we are very good at putting down certain things and limiting them and saying, oh, actually, those are for the elites. And even now, we think of networking as a little bit, it's not for everyone, is it? It's really a bit vulgar. It's really about business networking, which is, in fact, the only definition of non-cable networks on Wikipedia, as if it's all about a transaction. So if you've got nothing to sell, if I don't give you my business card, we've got no business to do. So that means the idea is, if I ask who you are and what you do, and I can't see an immediate benefit, so the theory goes, I'm supposed to sort of turn away. Like in Toy Story 2, when Woody's broken and he's thrown in the bin and he goes a long, long, long way down because he's no longer useful. And I want to question what we regard as useful and question why we are snobbish about using what we can do with networks. Now, that isn't to say all networks are good, and it isn't to say that there isn't a funny side to networks. I was reading a wonderful article in New York Magazine about the Ideas Festivals. I've just come back from my own Ideas Festival where I took 120 people on converted coaches, Premier League football coaches, to Portmeirion in North Wales for an ideas conference we do called Names Not Numbers, which is a perfect vehicle for the kind of intimate human networking I'm talking about. You take people on a journey, you take them to a place where they're experiencing something new and strange and wonderful together. You give them wonderful ideas. But this article in New York Magazine, which talked about TED, which is, of course, the alpha male of networks and networking and ideas spreading, it also talks about how we are part of a sort of clusterfuck culture, that we are the clusterfuckoisie, which means we're wankers because we network, because we spread ideas. And I think that that is like saying, oh, you go to galleries, that's a bit posh, isn't it? It sort of misses the point. Because there's a science behind networks. There is empirical evidence that show that networks are not either for fun or just for getting on in a clinical, cold way. That networks are the very way in which society functions. And the past master of the science of networks is somebody called Albert Laszlo Barbarassi, who's written a wonderful, wonderful book called Linked about the science of networking. And he has shown and demonstrated that everything we do in society connects through hubs. Some of it is not good. AIDS was spread by human hubs, right? Porn and bad rumor is spread by networks. When networks go down, when the hubs fail, if the lights failed, we would know about it. But when it's good, it becomes like a chain. It's why Google has its circles in its network. You form links and connections that make you stronger collectively than you would be individually. And that matters because if you want equality and fairness, which we all say we want, I mean, I say this as a businesswoman, by the way. I'm not actually part of the change, do good brigade. I'm first and foremost as selfish as the rest of you. But I do believe that we do not have much if we are isolated in our thinking and isolated in our connections. And the thing that you have by being here, the thing that I have by being born flukily with a silver networking spoon in my mouth, is the most valuable thing of all, which is curiosity. Because it's curiosity that drives networks, not the business card. It is who you talk to in the bus queue matters as much, because you never know what you're going to learn. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know when that idea you heard or that person telling you something is going to spark an idea. So forget the science. It's really as much about an art. It's as much about what is intangible that matters. So the weak tie theory basically follows that because I met Rosie, who features large in these discussions, when I was about 22, working at Virago, Rosie and I had nothing to transact at the time, but we kept bumping into each other because of the way human networks operate, and the London network operates, and the publishing network operates. And here we are 25 years later, and Rosie's wonderful daughter Daisy works at 5x15, and between them they said, will you come and talk about networks? Now, actually, that's good for me, because I run a networking business. So great. So here I am promoting my networking business. But that doesn't come from being clinical and calculating. It comes because I liked Rosie, and Rosie maybe liked me. So it's about being open, and it's about being human, and it's about taking that risk that if you don't say, who are you? You might never meet or make that connection. And if you think that's a sort of take it or leave it thing for you, imagine what it's like if you live in a city where there is not a university that you want or can afford to go to, where there is not a culture in which you meet and experience good ideas. And so we need to promote the idea of networks and networking if we really believe that there is such a thing as a social fabric. And if we don't, we should stay on our computers and hope to goodness that the hackers who know a lot about networking don't get to us first. So I'd like to finish by asking you to do that thing they normally ask you to do in churches or synagogues, which is to turn to the person next to you and say something about what you feel or think, and not about what you are on your business card. And I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thank you.